Hello and good morning from me, Philippa Blackham, and a very warm welcome to the Onepoint Oneness Friday morning session. Now, this isn't any regular Friday morning session. It's a very special session because it is the 100th session. So as you can see, we're in a new environment and we have special guests with us to celebrate this occasion. It's the yoga for the mind that we're talking about today, the guided meditations for the workplace, which is the theme for all these sessions. And if my maths is right, it means that we've been doing these sessions for just under a year, under 2 years, sorry. So really quite a special milestone moment. And with us we have Shashin Shah, who of course is the founder and CEO of Onepoint Consulting, which is a boutique technology and consulting company, and the company behind this initiative of the Onepoint Oneness Friday morning sessions. And we have Sister Jayanti with us, who has been on the Friday morning sessions over the past couple of years. So a warm welcome back to Sister Jayanti. I'll introduce you properly in just a moment. But Shashin, if we could start with you, what was your intention behind setting up these Friday morning meditation sessions?
So Onepoint has a focus on providing value in everything we do, and that means beyond delivering good value to clients, we always are keen to put something back into society generally. And so we support quite a few initiatives. We get involved in charity work. We bring on apprentices into our business. We take on refugees who can work with us, and we develop them, and we take freshers in India. And actually quite a lot of our team members in Onepoint, both in UK and India, do meditate regularly. And so when COVID hit us, it was like everybody was dispersed in different locations. How do we keep that team spirit going? How do we keep the connection with each one of us? How do we sustain each other? Because it was a question of a well-being issue for us. And so one of our business mentors actually suggested, since a lot of you meditate, why don't you provide this meditation to your staff, but open it up to everybody else, including your clients and the general public. And so that was the inspiration that got us started, and I'm so happy it's been going on for just over 2 years now.
And for many initiatives, really, the lockdown and the pandemic actually was what kick-started all sorts of different things. So there have been some sort of spin-offs from that whole journey. And before we introduce Sister Jayanti, just tell us a little bit about the culture of your organization, because you're a long-term meditator yourself.
Yes.
And I know that you like to encourage people that work with you to take up some kind of meditation practice. But how does that translate in terms of how the office environment functions?
Yeah, I mean, based on my experience, and I'm very happy that I've also had a spiritual mentor like Sister Jayanti over many years. I noticed the changes in my own life when I started to meditate, and how I was able to overcome different types of adversities. But this meditation was a little bit different in a sense that it helps transform you. There are many types of meditation out there where people expect you to be the observer of what's going in the mind, and that also is a good start. But I really wanted to change something fundamental within myself. And so that was the inspiration. And basically, naturally, when you really enjoy doing something, you want, and you see the benefit, you want others to see the benefit. And so basically, we felt that the meditation aspects, bringing that into the work culture, will have many benefits. And this is something we started way back in 2005 when the company started. But obviously, the meditation experience goes beyond that. And I just noticed, basically, when we introduced it into our offices, both in UK and London, we have a system called traffic control. Maybe we can talk about it later, which is a 1-minute meditation every hour on the hour. It changes the atmosphere. Each person individually has the option to pray or meditate or just reflect on something positive. And I really feel that positive energy soaks up within the environment. And I think when clients come and visit us, they do notice that there is something different here.
Well, it'd be very interesting to look at how that affects productivity and happiness and well-being in the workplace.
Yeah.
So we will definitely come on and talk about that. But our focus for this particular session is the power of silence, how silent reflection empowers you and your team. And who better to have to talk about that than Sister Jayanti, who is an embodiment of this power of silence that we're going to be talking about. So Sister Jayanti, it's wonderful that you're able to be with us for this session.
Happy to join you in this.
Now, rather than just give you a formal introduction, I had a bit of fun this morning imagining what you do as a job. And so I've written your job description. So tell me if anything I say is not correct, but let's listen to the job that Sister Jayanti does by way of an introduction. So you're one of those who's heading up a not-for-profit, large, multinational organization. There's over 1 million employees, if we call them that in the context of this exercise. Would you say that's right, about 1 million, or is it more than that now?
I would say that if you look at it in terms of a university rather than a company, we have 1 million students, but out of that, around 50,000 people would be the faculty.
Okay. So they're part of the teaching programs and guiding in the workshops.
Correct.
That's pretty large and pretty impressive. We could say that you have many million associates in terms of people that interact with your organization. Your organization works at both the grassroots level and at international level. You've had a permanent office at the United Nations in New York as a non-governmental organization since 1980. So you're spanning quite a stretch there.
And the interesting thing about the UN office is that we became the first spiritual organization that's not doing social work as such, but a different type of work, that received the highest status for an NGO at the UN, general consultative status, and that happened in 1989.
So definite recognition there. Now we're calling them students, but in this exercise, employees, if you like. They come from over 120 countries around the world. So we're talking about a really diverse group that you are in charge of. And you have an active presence in around 140 countries around the world, not necessarily branches, but still working in those countries. So you've got people from all cultures and backgrounds. You're dealing with many different languages, dozens of languages, many dozens of languages.
Yeah.
So that's also a challenge. So if we come to your job specifically, you're one of 3 heads. We have a CEO for the context of this exercise, who's based in India, but she's now in her late 90s. You have a job share in New York, but your job share, because of ill health, isn't able to travel so easily, so you have to do a lot of the traveling. This job that you're doing is a job for life.
It is.
You can't retire and you can't resign.
If I choose to, I could, but I won't.
Now, your contract states that you have to be present in the office by 4 o'clock in the morning every day.
I'm not sure whether you would put that in my leisure time or in my work description.
Now, that's an interesting question. So is that personal or is that professional? Okay. In terms of breaks during the day, there aren't any.
There's a break for breakfast, there's a break for lunch, and a break for dinner, so it's not as arduous as it sounds.
That's good. You're pushing back quite nicely here. You work evenings, you work weekends.
Yes.
Accommodation is provided as part of your job package, but the job specifies that you have to live at your place of work.
Yes.
So in effect, you're living above the shop, which means that you can't ever leave work and just go home and kick off and kick your shoes off or whatever. In terms of holidays, you don't get any.
I'd like to see it as having holy days.
Ah, very nice.
So we have many, many holy days.
Beautiful answer. You have the use of everything that you need, but you don't own anything.
Correct.
Another perk, all your meals are provided. You have to travel a lot to all the different branches around the world.
Which is also sometimes very interesting and pleasant, and sometimes hard work.
Other than the clothes that you stand up in, you don't really have any possessions.
A few clothes, a few more.
A few clothes. And now the big news, your salary. There isn't one.
0.
So you're not getting paid, but you measure success in terms of happiness.
Correct.
And in that you are super wealthy. So it's not your average job description. But what you're doing is managing this large international organization. So can you tell us how that all hangs together? Because everyone working within the organisation, in a way, has the same terms and conditions. They're not being paid, and yet they're passionate about what they do. Now, this, for anyone running a business, is a real secret of success. How do you engage people and motivate them to work in this way when their only reward is happiness?
I think it's a personal choice that they make. And because the meditation that they're engaged in is very, very rewarding and fulfilling in itself, one is happiness, but the other is the sense of fulfillment in purpose in life, in meaning in life. And I think that a spiritual path offers that, especially at this time in the world when the world is going through so much change and everything is unknown and unpredictable. At this moment, I would say that people who are meditating and who are part of the whole structure of the Brahma Kumaris University, all of them feel that there's a very positive contribution they're making to the world. And so that sense of fulfillment and purpose brings a huge amount of benefit to the individual, but also, of course, is bringing benefit to the world, to society.
So it's really finding your soul purpose, if we can call it that.
Yeah.
Finding what is yours to do. Mm-hmm. And if something feels, this is what I'm here to do, then the passion is there to do it.
Absolutely. And the beautiful thing is that so many different people come with so many different skills and talents, and they find a niche in which they can use all those talents and skills. And so the things that, like some people say, for 40 years of my life I've been doing X, Y, Z, but now I understand how to use all the things that I've learned and experienced in my life for a higher purpose. And so it's been like life has been preparing them to be able to come to a point where they can decide to choose that they'll use those skills and experiences to be able to serve the world.
Now, most people working in a company are selling a service or a product. And in a way, the difference with you is that you have to embody the product that you're promoting. There's no separation between giving a flashy sales pitch, but once that's over, you do whatever you like. This has to be right the way through. You're walking your talk.
It has to be, because you can talk about peace and happiness, and then if you're down and out, then nobody's going to really feel that it has any value. But if you're able to share that peace and happiness, then people will say, well, there's something here for me.
Mm-hmm. Another interesting aspect that we can draw from the way the organisation functions is that it's not about necessarily individual success, but about the success of the whole organisation as a whole. And in fact, success depends upon everyone feeling that they're moving forwards. And that, again, is something a little bit different.
It's very different because where personal success comes in terms of the world out there, there's always a touch of ego or a huge amount of ego that's involved. And on a spiritual journey and a spiritual purpose for an organization, ego is a real killer. And so, yes, each one is working at it on a personal level. The transformation inside then gets reflected in the sense that when people come together, there's appreciation of each one's qualities and each one's role, and so ego becomes minimized. And yes, people go through an ego crunch from time to time, but generally speaking, because we're all also studying the same spiritual laws and principles and experimenting with those in our lives together, again, it makes sure that we move along in the same direction. And the organization, of course, is moving forward very, very fast. The figures that you have from 1971, when we only had centers in India alone, to the first center that was established in London at that time. Today, 51, 52 years later, we're at the point where there are now activities in 140 countries. So removing the ego and getting out of the way in that sense has brought huge benefit to the organization, but also to all the individuals who've been part of that.
I'm sure this would be ringing bells, Shashin, for many people listening to this in terms of how to grow and expand a business. So we'll come on to that in just a moment. But Sister Jayanti, in a way, one of the things that makes this work, because from an outside observer point of view, it shouldn't work. Because it's so disparate, it's covering such vast global areas. And yet the reason it works is because there is a common purpose. Everyone is focused on one point, to use the one point of Shashin's business, one goal, and ultimately one destiny.
Yeah.
And it's that unity that everyone is working towards that holds it all together.
Absolutely. And we didn't even begin with a master plan that from 1971 to 81, 91, this is what we have to do or achieve. Each one just did whatever it is they could with love and dedication. And we knew that things would evolve in the right direction in an organic way. And that's how it's worked.
So Shashin, do you hear any sort of values being talked about here that you can translate to the business world?
Absolutely, and actually quite a few, I hope, have been translated already, because a lot of the key drivers about purpose in life and what I want to do within my own life and the business actually emanates from what Sister Jayanti has been saying. So when you talk about, for example, growth and organic growth and natural growth, this is what we have aspired to. You know, we set ourselves the goal actually that the well-being, the contentment, the value we can deliver is paramount. What we didn't want to do is to set targets, like Sister Jayanti was saying. A lot of organizations will want to come back and set targets for the next 3 years, 5 years. We want to have this sort of turnover. But our measure has been a level of contentment. You know, how do you define success? So it was important for us to actually define our parameters for success. Yes, financially you need to be stable, you need to have profits to be able to pay your people and reward people. The compensation is very important. But beyond that, all the softer skills were even more important. So purpose, you know, beyond the business, we have a purpose. We want to add value to society. How do we do that? As I mentioned, in a number of different ways. So I think growing organically and naturally and setting up a culture which is very supportive, caring and sharing is another sort of big concept that I learned from somebody called Dadi Janki, who actually was another one of my main spiritual leaders. And she was saying basically that, you know, always ensure caring and sharing are two important parts of your business model. So absolutely. And, you know, it's so enjoyable because, you know, we're not just driven by profits. So we will actually sacrifice for clients. We will give clients additional things to make sure they're happy. Clients stay with us quite a long time because of that and the trust we build up. So it's a very different business model.
How would you say the experience of coming to work and being in the workplace has been affected by the whole experience of working from home and the lockdown? Has that changed our expectations of how we want to feel at work?
Yeah, I mean, so when this happened to us the first time, we basically had some very young team members who basically recommended some sort of software which was free to enable people feeling connected all the time. A bit of gaming software, but people felt connected. So we kept the connection going from that point of view. And then, of course, all the Zoom meetings and everything crept in. But then we also had to adjust the business model because now people are working in a dual way, hybrid model. Some people work from home part-time in the office. But I love coming back into the office, I have to say, because I just like that personal interaction. I'm able to talk to people, enjoy the company. And that atmosphere that collectively you generate is very different to having that environment by yourself within your own home workplace. So I find the benefits of coming into the office outweigh the traveling disadvantages.
Mm-hmm. And you've been blazing a trail with your meditations on a Friday morning, but actually meditation in the workplace is something that is being adopted by you know, the large multinational corporations, the likes of Apple and Nike, and they're actually giving employees a moment in the day when they can just switch off and come into that experience of silence. How does that work in your office? Yeah,
so I think it's a really great concept. I mean, my only sort of slight hesitation with some of those approaches is basically that they're driven by productivity, which is another angle about trying to get the maximum out of your own people. But we didn't want to do it that way. We wanted to put something in our people so that the happiness and contentment increases. Not just because I want them to be more productive, get more out of them, you know, so that's the sort of aspect that we didn't want to do. And so far as it's optional, it's natural, it's there, if people want to take it up. If you don't want to take it up, it's also fine. So, just setting up a very different, flexible, easy type culture. We want people to be who they are when they come into the workplace. We want to try and accommodate that individual. We don't want to impose everything that the company wants to do on them. Of course, there are some things everybody needs to do, right? Otherwise, the business doesn't function. But there is a space for people. And so when I talk about this meditation and the traffic control, it allows each one of us individually to create that space inside of ourselves, to go into silence, bring the best within us, but more importantly, recognize the good things that each other person has. And I think that discerning power that comes through that power of silence and meditation is very important in the business context. If we can make the right decisions at the right time and still leave everybody happy and content, well, there's no better place to be than that, right?
So you just mentioned that traffic control, which for people who don't know, anyone visiting your office, there's some little relaxing meditation music will come playing over the airwaves.
Correct.
Once an hour on the hour?
Every hour on the hour for at least 2 minutes, instrumental music. And we say to people, take a moment, connect with yourself, forget the world outside, forget your work, forget what happened yesterday, what you want to do tomorrow, and go inside. See what's happening inside. Change your emotions, your feelings, so that hopefully the next 58 minutes of the hour can be better. You can pray, you can meditate, do whatever it is you want to, but give yourself that personal time and space to empower yourself from the power of silence.
Sister Jayanti, you've been promoting the art of meditation since 1971 when you came to the UK with the task of introducing the Western world to Raja Yoga meditation. How do you feel sitting here now in 2022 hearing that this is now happening in the office, in the workplace? This is quite a movement forwards.
It's really beautiful to see how all this has developed, again, in a very organic way. And yes, 50 years ago, I knew that individuals would be meditating more and more because I was just seeing the pattern of what was going on in the world outside. But I hadn't anticipated that companies would actually give time during their professional working time to people just to meditate. Now, that is something quite stunning. And I'm very happy to be part of this evolution and development. And it's not just that corporates are taking this in, but people like medicine, doctors, they're recommending people to have meditation because they feel that the stress that people are exposed to nowadays is huge. It really is ginormous. And to be able to cope with that and keep your sanity, and sanity again is an important word that people are now understanding more about, you really need to do some inner work yourself. And so I'm very, very glad to see that meditation has become part of mainstream life in a way that I hadn't anticipated.
Because traditionally people have compartmentalized their work life from their home life, and this kind of self-nourishment has been something that's happened in your home time, not in your work time.
That's right.
But I think the working environments are now accepting that the whole person comes to work. And you can't ignore the stresses and anxiety that that person is experiencing in the rest of their life.
Right.
And that actually work can be a place that is sustaining and supporting them and enabling them to function in all those other aspects of their life as well.
Very simple situation. Here's a parent who's been at work all day and they haven't been able to cope with the stress of frenetic deadlines and all the work that's been piling up for whatever reason and that they have to do. And they come home, what sort of condition is it they're in that they're going to be offering to their children? And I see children today really not always getting the sort of parenting that's gentle and loving and kind with understanding and discipline, not that they're just allowed to do what they want, but that perfect balance of parenting in which there's a lot of love and nurture, but there's also a discipline. And a parent has to be quite balanced within themselves in order to be able to provide that for the next generation. And most parents don't have the energy to do that. And so if today people say, well, what about young people? There's more on the drug scene, more on this, more on that. there's a reason for that, and that's because home life isn't giving that sort of support and nurture that it used to. And so I think that now that companies have recognized that they need to provide something that can nurture the human being who's going to have to go home and do other things, I think it's very, very important.
And then that benefits the employer, because if things are going more smoothly in the home life, then they'll be able to concentrate more on what they're doing in their working life. But we're talking this morning about the power of silence. And silence isn't necessarily a quality that you expect to have at work. If you're working in an open plan office, sharing workstations, there's a lot of noise going on nearly all the time. What do you mean by silence in this work context? Is it an actual silence, or is it a sort of internal experience that somehow you can access and feel, even though there's noise and chaos going on around you?
This traffic control is a perfect description of how this all works. And I'm so glad that you have it going on in Onepoint company also. What's going on inside of me is my creation, my thinking, my feelings, and we don't always realize this. We always feel that what's going on inside is a direct outcome of what's going on outside. And that's how it's happened in recent times, but it doesn't have to be like that. Rather, it could be the other way. Whatever's going on inside can actually influence whatever's going on outside. And so if I start with that premise that my mind is my property, and I can create within my mind whatever it is I choose to create. And so when I create even 2 minutes, 3 minutes of peace by going within, because the natural state of the inner being is actually of peace. And that's when not only is the inner being peaceful, but this physical form of mine is also in a state of balance. And when I'm not peaceful, there's a huge amount of change that happens in the physiology, which means that when there's stress and peacelessness, that's going to impact my health. And of course, that then creates more issues. But the peace inside is natural, and connecting with that means that I can maintain that inner state of silence, in which it's not empty silence, it's not vacant, it's not blank, but it's a silence that deeply connects me with the self and the peace that I carry within myself, and a chance to reflect and see what's going on within and sort out whatever I need to sort out. So outside, maybe at the moment there's chaos, but I go inside, generate that energy within, and when I come back after 3 minutes to the world out there, I bring to it a different dimension. I bring with myself that inner peace so that I'm able to spread peace into the vibrations and the atmosphere around me. And so it's doing two things. A, it's protecting me from the negativity of the atmosphere out there. But B, I'm actually doing something that's constructive, that can change the atmosphere from chaos to calm, which I think is so very much needed today. So the peace that we experience in meditation is one in which I'm totally conscious of the inner being rather than whatever is out there. And through that, I'm creating the consciousness that I would like to have. And so it's silence in the sense that it's not 1,000 thoughts a moment, but it's very slow, very steady, conscious thoughts that I am choosing to create.
So in the language of business, what you're saying really is if you can make an investment of 3 minutes of your time, then the other 57 minutes will benefit hugely.
Yes.
And you talked about the benefits for the individual, but do you see that also rippling out in terms of the office dynamics? Because so often there's office politics, there's office gossiping, there's, so much time is wasted in, heated discussions that can take place. How do you see meditation improving all of that?
The reality is that meditation that's happening within one individual is definitely radiating out within the workplace. And so one individual who's angry and everybody's a bit fearful of them, and if not afraid of them, at least very cautious of any dealing with them. And so one person can have a huge impact on the whole team. The converse, if I'm peaceful and calm, then not only do I have an impact on the atmosphere, but also on the individuals who are operating there. But also, they know and begin to trust that I'm not going to react in a negative way. And so probably I'll find that more and more people come to me and become my friends. Then we're not just working together, but there's a mutual bond of trust that's created. And so trust within a working environment saves a huge amount of debate and discussion and rivalry and competition. And so I think that remove those negative things from the environment, and there's a huge benefit. I'll share a little story with you. This was some time ago, but it was in India, and a very big company in India had put in an application to have a fertilizer company there, and another much smaller unit had put in the same application in. Both applications were granted. This was at a time when it was felt that fertilizers were of benefit. Today it would be different. But at that time, it was both companies were granted their request. The big company did whatever it was doing. The small company, once it started to create the whole system for the fertilizer stuff, they also, by chance, at the same time, had people come in to talk to them about pausing for a few moments, and at that time it was called self-managing leadership, SML. So this was taken through the entire company, right from the decision makers to the executives and through to the managers. I'm not sure that it went to all the people working there, but certainly to that level. And they found that the small company that had the people working on themselves were able to mobilize all aspects of energy, and the plant was commissioned literally 3 months ahead of the big company, whereas the big company had all the resources they need to make it happen. But this one had people who were focused, people who trusted each other, people who are willing to work in cooperation and support each other without the ego factor coming in, and just based on respect for each other and valuing each other. So I've seen that actually happen. Now translate that into a situation where there's a little company or a bigger one or a medium-sized one, and you can see that whatever is the task, whether it's creating a fertilizer plant or just satisfying the needs of one client, working together, putting all energy to move in the same direction is absolutely fantastic and makes such a huge difference.
I mean, this is going to be music to the ears of a lot of people listening, Shashin, isn't it? Because we're talking about, you know,
agility,
concrete
yeah, but
examples.
also we're talking about agility. Agility is a very firm term a lot of businesses use, that we need to be agile to deal with the changing circumstances in the world. And so this is such a great example of how do you actually create a really truly agile organization by actually bringing people's hearts and minds together. And that naturally things just flow, right? When you've got that sort of culture, people just get on and do what they need to do. You know, you don't have to go and micromanage, you don't have to monitor what everybody's doing. You know, all these aspects about people working remotely, then some people are worried, what are they doing? You know, so because the individual is empowered to be able to get on and do things. So that's a wonderful example of creating a very agile business, frankly.
And what would you see in terms of the other benefits? I'm thinking of things like absenteeism because of ill health, because people get so stressed, people being dissatisfied at work and leaving, you know, there's countless benefits.
Yeah, there is, and I think you must have heard about the great resignation term people are using. Lots of people are changing jobs, and a lot of the reason is to do with the culture, the way they feel they are treated, and we've been on a journey to try and make sure we create a different type of culture. You know, I'm touching wood and hope my team listening on the call, but really we have very low attrition rates in our business. because, people are part of it, they feel they're contributing, they're valued, they're looked after. And I think it creates a very different set of dynamics. Clients are surprised when I tell them, yeah, the person who did this work 5-7 years ago is still with us. So the knowledge is retained within the business. It's got so many other hidden benefits like that. But the key thing is the interaction between people. It's not antagonistic in that sense. It's not a toxic environment. These are the types of things, if you can remove them within a company culture, can bring huge benefits. And that's what meditation does. For me individually, one of the biggest things is that I've become more aware of myself, my feelings, my emotions. And I know basically when I'm stepping out of line, I've got to step back into line quickly. Mm-hmm. And I have to do that first. I can't expect my team to do it. And so there's this constant monitoring going on, saying, okay, what am I really up to? Forget everybody else for the moment.
And we, all of us who've been in a working environment, know the extent to which the person who's leading the team, whether that's the CEO or the director, who they are as a person, how they operate, their personal culture, that somehow seems to seep down and inspire or influence everybody in the company.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so true. And of course, in a lot of places, people feel completely disconnected. They don't even feel that connection at the top. And so there's nothing to tie them into creating a loyalty feeling. In the old days, people used to be loyal to business. Now, these days, it's hardly there. People expect to leave after 2 years. So it's not like you want to tie people in, but you want to give them a good experience, so they feel valued. And after that, if they leave, at least they've taken something more from us than they would have from another company, and that's how we see it.
I had a little listen through to the experience of some of the employees who work in your office, and it was very inspiring, actually, listening to them. They talked about it being a very open environment. They talked about human beings being at the core of the business, which for a technology IT company, that's nice to hear. They talked about a feeling of belonging. They loved the traffic control. They said it enabled them to take a moment to really think about a problem and how to tackle it. They felt mentally refreshed. They said it was just lovely having a little instrumental music playing in the background. It just relaxed them, stopped any stress from building up. And this is something that you can't say you haven't got time to do, because, I described Sister Jayanti's daily schedule.
Exactly, yeah.
And yet within that, you find ways of having these little moments of silence. So anybody can do it.
In fact, we're talking now about traffic control in 3 minutes, but some time ago we had a project called JAM, and that was just a minute. And we were inviting people to listen to meditation commentaries for just a minute. And literally, I was part of that initially, then many others stepped in and the project rolled on. But we would look at the clock to make sure that the meditation commentary was under 60 seconds and no more than that. And people found it extremely valuable. Just a minute even in which you can take time to calm yourself down, to come back to the essence of who you are and what your own inner core values are. And if you're doing that, then you're able to express those core values in your work and you feel content. Otherwise, work is just, packing boxes or ticking boxes or whatever it is. And what I'm really interested in is something completely different. But if I can bring this aspect of just a minute or 3 minutes into the workplace, it means that I'm connecting with the inner being and then I'm sharing those qualities, whether it's instantly connected with the work that I do, or whether it's connected with my relationships with people around me. And on both levels, it's then very rewarding.
Shashin, if someone's listening to this morning and feels inspired to give it a go, I've heard of some companies that live stream meditation commentaries, and there's a lot of apps that people can download. How would you suggest they go about actually doing some of these things?
Yeah, they can reach out to the Oneness team, and we have an app also we've built in conjunction with the charity, and it's a free app. Again, we wanted to create an app that's accessible to everybody, so there's no charge for it, unlike lots of other applications. And keep on joining the Friday sessions and just reach out. And if you want something set up, you want to come to our offices and see how it works, open invitation, come and see practically how it works, experience it, and then take some concepts, implement it in your own businesses.
I've got a little idea brewing in my mind for another business, which would be to train up meditators that you can rent out to offices, and they can just sit there and meditate and inspire the workforce to keep calm and de-stress.
I made a note of it.
Yeah, I did an interview once with one of our brothers from Spain who did a freelance job for quite a high-up CEO. And the job that he was working on came to an end. And at the end of the job, she said to him, look, can I pay you just to come in and sit here in my office? Because it's just so lovely having you here, and you bring so much calm and so much benefit. Yeah. And I thought, wow, to be paid to just come and sit and meditate.
That's amazing.
That's a job that I would definitely sign up for. So maybe, Sister Jayanti, we've been talking about this power of silence. Maybe it's time to actually experience what we're talking about. So if you could lead us in a few moments with your own thoughts that we can use to really try and access that inner silence that you've spoken of and experience that for ourselves this morning, that would be really lovely.
Sure. Please carry on sitting comfortably wherever you are, however you're seated, but let the body be very alert so that you're sitting upright rather than lying down. And the best is to keep both feet firmly on the ground so that the body is properly balanced and your back straight. And just let your thoughts flow in the direction that is being suggested. I ask myself the question, who am I? And I begin to feel that there's more than just this body of mine. And my thoughts are drawn to the center of the forehead. And I realize that who I am, what I am, everything that I am is all compressed within a tiny point of light. As I focus my thoughts towards the center of the forehead, I can feel the life force, the living energy here, yes, my body is absolutely precious, valuable, and important. But now, for just a couple of minutes, I choose to experiment. I begin to feel the living being shining in the center of the forehead, and connecting with this being, feeling the peace and the love that's within my inner world. I choose to go within and see where my thoughts are going. Now, my thoughts are moving slowly. My thoughts are connected not only to me, but now connecting even with the Supreme. in my inner world, I feel the silence, the stillness within. Here there is peace. The world outside stays out there. And in this awareness of few thoughts, thoughts connected with the eternal self, the inner being, I discover that in this silence there is peace and love and truth. My thoughts are drawn to the world out there. This is the peace that I had wanted. This is the peace I can share with all. I stay in this awareness, but now, as I return to the awareness of the world around me, I resolve the question of what I need to do. I simply need to share this peace through my thoughts, my words, and my actions. This is the greatest contribution I can make. Om Shanti. I am peace. Thank you.
And thank you, Sister Jayanti, for that beautiful experience of silence. It's amazing how one of the best things we can experience for free. It's there all the time, anytime we want to tune into it. Shashin, you've been a real inspiration. Thank you for all that you're doing and giving back to the community, which is such a lovely way for any business to operate. So Sister Jayanti of the Brahmakumaris, Additional Administrative Head, Shashin Shah, CEO of Onepoint Consulting. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you for holding it together beautifully.
Yes, thank you,
Yes,
Philippa.
so welcome, so welcome. And do keep tuning in. These Friday sessions are going to keep going.
Yes, they will be.
So Friday morning, 9 o'clock, this is the place to be for your weekly injection of silence. Until then, take good care. Goodbye.